Picking up on the third and final part of the blood notes. Picking up where we left off, bile is what gives the stool its brown color, basically your old red blood cells that have been recycled. So when the heme groups get broken up, when they're recycling, the iron atom basically leaks out and it gives you a biliverdin molecule. And then the iron, most of it's recycled. The biliverdin becomes bilirubin. Bilirubin is used by the liver to produce bile. And that's what makes your feces brown. Basically, bile helps emulsify fats, makes them smaller so they can be digested. If your liver is damaged or not working, you'll get jaundice. That means you get a yellowing in the skin, your eyes, the white of your eyes, the sclera become yellowish because the bilirubin builds up and gives that yellowish color. So you can tell someone's got liver disease if they look jaundiced, if they look yellow. So the iron is recycled for the most part. All right, so what happens physiologically to an athlete who decides, I'm going to go train at the Colorado Springs training area for the Olympics because I want to build up my stamina for a long distance run? What they do is it's got less air up there because the altitude's higher, so there's less air pressure and less oxygen. The low oxygen in the high mountain area is detected by the kidneys. Believe it or not, your kidneys, we'll get into this in the urinary system, they can detect the low oxygen in the blood. The kidneys respond by producing something called erythropoietin. They give shots called EPO to make your red blood cells come up. Erythropoietin is simply erythro, which is erythrocytes. Poiesis is to make, and IN is a protein. So this is a protein hormone which goes through the blood, it gets in the bone marrow and tells your bone marrow to amp up red blood cell production. So the EPO or erythropoietin, if you just put EPO on the test, I'll accept that. It tells the bone marrow to produce more erythrocytes, undergo erythropoiesis, which is production of erythrocytes. So if you get cut, first of all, your blood vessels do constrict to make it a tighter area to come through, so it makes it harder for the blood vessels, the stuff to leak out, the blood cells. The platelets, your thrombocytes, when they're exposed to the broken collagen, the collagen which is now exposed, which isn't inside capillaries, but when they're exposed to collagen, they stick, they become really sticky and stick to it. When they're sticky like that, they have a little bit of actin and myosin in them. You remember what that was? Yeah, in muscles. It makes them contract a bit. And then a cascade of events kicks on to where an enzyme, prothrombinase, turns prothrombin into thrombin. Thrombin then cuts off the end of fibrinogen, which is inactive, to make it active. Now it's called fibrin. Fibrin is a very sticky protein which sticks together and makes a little mesh net. And that net then catches the red blood cells. And it catches them, and the red blood cells eventually dry up. And that's what your scab is fibrin and red blood cells. So the platelets or the thrombocytes, the release of vasoconstricting chemicals, which causes the blood vessels vaso to constrict. Okay, I mentioned that earlier. Threw it up here again. Your platelet plug formation, or again the thrombocytes. Like I said, the thrombocytes, they stick to the collagen in the connective tissue. Blood does not normally touch connective tissue. It touches the simple squamous epithelial lining the inside of capillaries. It doesn't touch collagen. When they get cut, then collagen's exposed, thrombocytes, which are platelets, stick to it, and they're activated through a phospholipase-mediated signal. Big word, just letting you know this is some details. But then they start sticking together. Okay, and again, I mentioned this earlier. The prothrombinase is activated. It's an enzyme which is activated to turn prothrombin to thrombin. So prothrombin is inactive thrombin. Thrombin is now like an enzyme to work on fibrinogen. It clips off the end of fibrinogen, so it makes it sticky for fibrin. Fibrin then forms a mesh network, and boom. Again, Wow, third and final time. This must be pretty important. You get an injury, you get a breaking blood vessel. Clotting factors, whole bunch of clotting factors, cascade of them kick in to where they turn eventually prothrombinase is activated. It turns prothrombin into thrombin. Thrombin then turns fibrinogen into fibrin, and fibrin makes your clot, or your net, which catches the red blood cells, the erythrocytes. They dry up and make your scab. So how do we control clotting? If you've got thick blood, you can take anticoagulants to help counteract that. You've got anticoagulants in your blood to counteract the domino effect of the clot from protruding past the cut. So once you get your cut, all that clotting takes place right at the surface of the cut. It does not go on beyond the blood, inside the blood vessels any further. So you got anticoagulants, checks and balances basically in the system, which keep it from working, from clotting and throwing a clot, which will give you a heart attack. So again, the platelets do have actin and myosin. I mentioned that already. I got ahead of myself. And they help pull that cut together. And underneath that, your epithelial tissue continues to expand and grow and replenishes the old cut epithelium, heals it. You got this thing called plasminogen, which is inactive. Anything that ends in ogen is inactive. It is converted to plasmin. Plasmin is now an enzyme which will break down the fibrin. So from the inside, it breaks down that fibrin, and that's gone then. Aspirin, Coumadin, which they call warfarin, and heparin are all things which help thin the blood so it doesn't clot as readily. Aspirin, salicylic acid. Coumadin, some of your grandparents might take Coumadin, or your parents might take Coumadin to thin their blood so they don't have a heart attack. Heparin is actually a chemical found in the saliva of leeches. So when they suck on your blood, it keeps your blood from coagulating, clumping in there, so they just keep flowing freely right in their mouth. Heparin was they put in ports to keep the blood from clotting in the port, or a needle that's been sitting inside your veins for a while, so they can keep adding different, like if they want to add a chemical, a chemotherapy drug, or if they want to do hemodialysis for kidney failures, run something there, take the blood in and out with, they'll add heparin to keep the blood from clotting. So Coumadin is used to treat blood clots, such as in deep vein thrombosis. We'll watch a video series on a guy who got DVT, deep vein thrombosis, which is that deep veins deeper in your body, and the blood thrombus means clot. It starts clotting because you're putting so much pressure on, the blood's squeezing through and starts bouncing off each other, and it starts sticking to each other. Red blood cells, when they get turbulent, they will stick to each other. Or a pulmonary embolism. An embolism is a clot that is broke loose and goes to the lungs as pulmonary, or basically helps you prevent new clots from the rest of your body. All right, so here we have a diagram of everything I just told you. You can pause the video here and look at it. Hopefully it makes more sense in a diagram for the visual learners. Labeling quiz. You'll get something like this. You got to know these. You did these in the lab. So A is, yes, your erythrocytes. B is the neutrophil. It is neutral. It takes both the blue basic dye and the eosin red dye. C, that looks red, so that's going to be the eosinophil. It dyes red. D is mostly, it's a smaller white blood cell, smaller leukocyte, but it's mostly nucleus. That's going to be lymphocyte. Lymphocyte produces the antibodies. And E is a tiny little thrombocytes, your platelets. Okay, again, the average human body has anywhere from 4 to 6 liters of blood in the body, depends on your size. Some people say, wow, that's a lot. Some people say, that's not much. It's basically what you've got running through your veins, carrying life to the rest of your cells. I like this diagram. It helps you visualize the blood types, where the big blue bars would be like antigen A, the big green arrows would be antigen B, and the little rhesus or RH factor is a little tiny black box. So you see AB positive people have all the antigens on the outside. they're the universal recipient. They can receive from anybody because they recognize A, B, and Rh antigens as being part of the self, part of the same body. O people don't have either A or B antigens, so they have antibodies against A and B, and they can donate to anybody, but they can't receive from anybody but O. And we did a couple labs like this and practice in class, so this is as far as I'm going to go with this. With that said, we're done.